सौम्यवदना जयति वीणा वादनी मा सरस्वती हंसवाहिनी ज्ञानपुंज प्रकाशिनी मृदुल मीठा कंठ तो माँ भाव हो करुणा भरे हो सशक्त समर्थ लेखन दुख सभी काये हरे माँ सरस्वती हंसवाहिनी ज्ञानपुंज प्रकाशिनी शुभ्रवसना सौम्यवदना जयति वीणा वादनी मा सरस्वती मा सरस्वती मा सरस्वती हंसवादिनी ज्ञानपुंज प्रकाशिनी.
Colleagues and friends in the audience, a warm welcome to all of you. We are waiting to hear Mataji and Vikramji, so I will not take a lot of time. But I have a couple of things to just share with you. This morning I was in AIMS. They invited me to give a lecture to the young doctors there. And I was supposed to give my lecture at 9:30. But I had my class at IIT from 8 to 8:50. So at 9 I started. I didn't know what kind of traffic will be there on Yusuf Sarai Road. So, but fortunately I reached the venue by 9:20. The conference was supposed to start at 9. The first speaker would speak from 9 to 9:30, and then I will speak from 9:30 to 10. So I reached there at 9:20, but the conference was, it was nowhere close to any starting point. And ultimately we started, I think, maybe around 9:45, and I could start speaking only around 10:30 or so. So the point is, the organizers, they said, we wish we could start at 9 o'clock, people come slowly, one by one. So I told them, you see, when I joined here in JNU last year, I used to observe our program start all the time late. But we discussed together and we decided that everything we should start on time. Now, if you want to see change, you should be the change. You should be part of the change. And I'm glad that today this program started today sharp at 4 o'clock. So it is important that when we talk about the faults in the system and how things are not working properly, just criticizing will not work. All of us have to contribute and we have to work together to change the system. Now let me tell you a very short incident from Ramayana. No wonder Sri Rama, he was very confused about himself. So he goes to Vashishta, and Vashishta was inside, the door was locked. He goes and knocks, and from inside Vashishta, he says, "Who are you?" Then Sri Rama says, "Guruji, I have come here to know the answer exactly to this question. Who am I? What am I?" In our life, often we are confused about the very purpose of our life, the very meaning of our existence, right? Great people like Vivekananda has often told us how it is important for us to find what is that we are passionate about in our life. Once you find your passion in your life, it is not a one-day thing that you can find, you wake up and find what is your passion. You have to discover it. And once you discover your passion, and you need to acquire the skills to realize this passion. And then once you find this sweet spot of your passion and your skills and working towards a real need, then you find a purpose for your life. So whenever we read the writings of Vivekananda, it is important that we have to look back into our own life and see, are we working to realize the purpose in our life. Often we just read and feel nice about it and go back. It is very, very important that however small changes that we may create within ourselves and in the surroundings around us, we must do that. Now, Mahatma Gandhi once said that whatever you do in your life may be insignificant, but the point is that you must do it. So, friends, on this great occasion, on this day when we are celebrating Vivekananda's birthday, let us remember and take the vow that all of us will contribute as much as possible, individually and collectively, to change the system and improve the system. Thank you very much.
Always been very inspirational, and I hope even today there'll be take-home lessons. Before moving on to the next speaker, by way of felicitations, we wish to express our deep appreciation to our dignitaries on the stage for their willingness to share and spare their valuable time for today's event. Therefore, I request VC Sir to please present a token of gratitude to Mataji and to Advocate Banerjee. Sir, please.
Namaskar. Before I would like to start, I would like to, it's such an honor to speak before both such an honored audience, as well as I would like to thank Professor Jagdish Kumar, Professor Rana and Mataji. It's an honor to speak before such an august audience, and it's an honor to come to JNU and speak on a subject which I think is extremely important. But more importantly, what I would like to speak on, and this is something which keys into the topic which I was supposed to speak today, about the importance of youth to nation building, because all of us are part of a very premier institute, and all of us know that we are a part in very important part in the way the nation sort of looks at itself, and how it sort of looks at itself and works towards its final goal and ambitions. Now, what I would like to bring forward in this case, and this is especially because it is, most importantly, it is Swamiji's 155th birthday, or that how do we feel about Swamiji? And I would like to not only bring in the youth, but as the youth, how do we perceive Swamiji as we today? And we all have to realize two very fundamental things. That when Swamiji left for eternal rest, it was 1902. So I think today we are in 2017. So 100, 110, 15 years have passed. Is he still relevant? And can he give us an indication of how the youth should perceive India? Because we all know youth has contribution to the country, youth needs to lead the country. We agree with that, that's a broad question. And let us look at, especially today, the importance of what Swamiji said to the youth to decide on what should be the pathway to India of the future. And this is what I just want to flag mark a number of issues. I don't want to speak a lot, because what Swamiji said, two or three things which he said was so incredibly true, that you have to do rather than speak. So it's the best thing is to do. And so, what I would like to just flag mark some issues which would have come from Swamiji, what I think from reading his works. But at the end, again, what Swamiji continuously stressed on, and something which we all, I think, should believe in, that it's up to us individually No one can tell us, as he always used to say, test everything with rationality. He met a very famous, one day he was traveling on the train somewhere and he met this very famous Indian leader. And the leader liked Swamiji, who spoke in English, who very clearly managed to enunciate Indian philosophy. And he invited him home. And this unknown monk stayed in his house for 10-15 days, and he was so popular that lots and lots of people started gathering at this famous leader's house. And when it became too unbearable and there were too many people, this unknown monk left the house quietly. This person was Bal Gangadhar Tilak. And he later realized the person who had stayed in his house was Swamiji. So this fact of being, of doing work for the sake of work, but not for the sake of one's fame or claim, this is another very important thing which I think Swamiji, the youth can take back from Swamiji. In summary, I think that today the future of the Indian youth is brighter than ever. We have opportunities which were never even foreseen 10 years back, 15 years back, 20 years back. We are on the cusp of great change, and yet our society is changing at a tremendously rapid pace. And we are still facing the dilemma which Swamiji famously faced between what is Kila and Sharabdis, of the great attractions of the West, of its unlimited freedom, and the traditional calling of Indian civilization. And as he then said, that we cannot lose this and we should not lose our past. The solution should be a balance of both of them. And to that extent, I think, in the end, that is Swamiji's greatest contribution. And this is something which we should all remember for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. You have a very keen and deep understanding of Swamiji's works, and we appreciate your enlightening us with them so passionately, especially dotted with the anecdotes. I very humbly now invite our chief guest, Mataji, Sri Sardamath Dakshineshwar, to address the gathering with her talk on Swami Vivekananda's message to the youth.
Om Namah Shri Adhirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukha Swarupaya Swamine Tapaharine. Respected Vice Chancellor Sir, Rector Sir, Advocate Vikramjit Banerjee, my greetings to all of you and everyone gathered here on this very important occasion of Swami Vivekananda's birthday, National Youth Day. And we just now heard an enlightening talk, to which before I begin my talk, I would like to add a few footnotes, you can say, to his talk, because there are some points which he mentioned which we can throw a little more light upon. First of all, he appreciated the fact of Swamiji being such a great political scientist. He has thrown light on so many facets of national life. Yes, this is really something wonderful. He has given us a social philosophy. He has spoken on education. He has spoken on so many things. You know, this ability to see through so many facets of life and give you the actual real perspective and where we should actually be, what we should be moving towards. This comes from a mind which is close to the reality behind the human personality. A spiritual mind. In our Upanishads, there is this very famous, you can say, mantra, statement. It says, Brahma Vidya Sarva Vidya Pratishtham, which means if there is Brahma Vidya, every other form of knowledge will naturally come to you. So the ability to see, have this insight into every department of life comes when the mind itself has gone deep into its source. Now this may appear very fantastic to many of you, but this is what the spiritual path is about. Spirituality is not some special process which we have to bring in from outside. Spirituality is nothing but looking at life deeply. When you look at something very deeply, you go into the heart of the thing, and that is spirituality. So if you can do that, you will get these very great, deep insights into every department of human life. And this is what I think is required. This is what makes Vivekananda a unique role model for our youth. And there are very many things which our young people can pick up from his life. The topic given to me is Vivekananda's message to youth. His message is actually for the young people of our country. And his greatest faith was in the young people of our country. You see, usually spiritual stalwarts everywhere, stalwarts in all fields, even political stalwarts, they always have more faith in their generation. But you know, Swamiji's greatest faith was in the young generation. And he used to say, from them will come my lions, who will work out the whole problem, all the problems concerning India by themselves. And we are at a very important, I would say, junction in Indian history, where we have the largest number of youth population in the world. Isn't it? India is the country which has the greatest youth population in the world. So over the next 15 to 20 years, if we can channelize that youth power, I think India can achieve a lot. And that is where Vivekananda's message to the youth becomes especially relevant, important for this age, for our young people, because there are a lot, many things they can draw from Vivekananda's life. You see, Vivekananda's life is not something, it was not smooth sailing for him. If you actually study his life, you will see it was a life of struggle. It was a life where Swamiji learnt lessons firsthand. He saw the harsh realities of life, the dark sides of life, and from that is drawn his philosophy, his understanding, from that is drawn his spirituality. He came into contact with this great spiritual master, Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, and his entire thinking is based on so many of these real life experiences. And that is why Swamiji comes to us as a young man who has passed through all facets of life and seen life very deeply. So our young people can immediately connect with that. I was just talking to a youngster and he was telling me they wanted something on willpower, you see. How can young people develop their willpower? So I told them, you just read how Swamiji developed his willpower. When he was a young man, you know, at the age of 20, Swamiji faced a very harsh reality in his life. His father suddenly died. Although he came from a very well-to-do family, when the father passed away, the family was quickly reduced to penury because his father had not saved for the future and he was in debt. So the entire responsibility of the family fell on Vivekananda's shoulders. And at that time he was young Narendranath, a brilliant young man, potent, capable of everything, strong body, strong mind, spiritual inclination, everything was there. But when he faced this situation, he went knocking from door to door, asking for a job, and nobody gave him a job. Can you imagine the condition? This young man with all faculties well developed, so brilliant in mind, and yet he could not find a job, he could not provide for his family, and so that was the beginning of his seeing life as it is, seeing all the different dark facets of life. And that is why we come to this very practical philosophy of Swamiji. His message to the youth is very practical because he actually faced these situations. Not just that, when he was in search of a job, he saw that his friends deserted him. Those who stood by him when he was doing well actually left him. He would come home and see that there was limited food at home. And then he would tell his mother, well, my friends have invited me somewhere and I will be eating outside. And it was only to see that his family ate well. It was to see that his brothers and sisters were well provided for. And there were very many negative forces which worked upon him at that time. But Swamiji's will was so powerful, so committed to the higher values of life that it never bent to any of these negativities. But he picked up real life lessons from them. And this is what he is giving out as his message to our young people. If they can relate to him, I would have been happier if I had seen a number of young faces here. Although yes, there's a very good number here today. If our young people can study his life, I think that will be a real eye-opener for everyone. Now his basic message to our young people was, be and make. it's something which our honorable guest of honor also said. You be the change you want to make in the world. Be the change. Now here we have to understand one point. That is, to be the change, you have to actually become the change, isn't it? It must come into our own lives. If as individuals we change our mindsets, our ways of thinking, our ways of working out things, then we will be able to apply it at the collective level. If this individual change does not come, you cannot make vast changes for the nation. That is why Swamiji insisted on character development. It is the precursor to national awakening, national development. And for this, there's a very beautiful story, I would say, which illustrates this. How it matters. The individual character that we form through our everyday life, that matters in a big way in our decision making. And that is going to matter in a big way in our career, in our workplace, in what we are going to make the India of the future. So this story is something very simple, but it has a very significant message for us. You see, there was this little boy who was pestering his father to come and play with him, a 4-year-old. And then the father was very busy with his work, so he said, "Look son, you go and play, I have no time." And the boy said, "No, Papa, you have to come." So then Papa invented something. He had a jigsaw puzzle, you see, a huge box full of the different states of India. And this child had not yet seen an India map. In those times, there was no Google. And he had not seen the world map or the map of India as yet. So the father thought putting all these states together, putting everything together will take a long time. So he gave the whole thing to the son and said, "Okay, you go and see what you can find from all this, what you will do about this puzzle." So the boy went, and in 2 minutes he was back. He came back and he said, "Papa, it is finished, please come and see." And the father went and saw indeed the entire map of India with all the states had been put together so quickly. And then this father said that, "My son, how did you do this? You must be a genius. How can you do it? You haven't even seen the map of India as yet." And then this child said, "But I didn't put this together. This is what I put together." And he turned that block, and behind was the picture of a human being. This child had put the hands together and the feet together and the head in place. And on the other side, all the states, everything had been put into place. The entire map of India had been put into place. So the significance of this story is, if you put the individual together, if we aim at individual character development, in the long run, you will be putting big, huge things together. But if we ignore this fact, you cannot integrate the nation or you cannot integrate the world if you have not integrated the individual at the individual level. And that is why Vivekananda insisted on ये जो चरित्र गठन हम कहते हैं, चरित्र निर्माण, that is the foundation for a great life, for a great nation. That is a very basic foundation. Otherwise, you will have to use all sorts of methods in order to bring some amount of character into our political ideologies, into our administration, into our education. You will have to use many things. He insisted on this, and that is why he spoke of philosophy and spirituality and whatever. One must have a high, it is important to keep a higher ideal in life so as to muster all our energies towards something higher than our personal little selves, higher than our immediate family. And then we can transmute this energy into something really worthwhile. So this is the first point which Vivekananda tells us. The second is, he talks about Shraddha a lot. You know, the old idea was Shraddha meant faith in God. But Vivekananda himself said, the new religion says Shraddha means faith in oneself. First, faith in your own selves, faith in your understanding of things, faith in your own being. This is fundamental to any change. If this faith does not come into us, how are we going to trust God? How are we going to trust any other personality, any other individual? If I don't trust myself, whom can you trust? So the beginning is, it starts with faith in oneself. Shraddha for oneself. And you know, the psychology behind this Shraddha is very interesting. You can actually have faith in yourself only when you find yourself reliable, isn't it? Tell me, can you have faith in yourself if you are constantly lying? Or when not doing something which ought to be done, procrastinating things, being disobedient to rules? You can't have faith in yourself if you're doing all these things. You can have faith in yourself only when you find yourself reliable. Then only confidence builds up. Then you know that, well, in any given situation, I can find my way out. In any given situation, I am capable of taking the right decision. So, Shraddha entirely depends upon, again, character development. Shraddha entirely depends upon self-reliability, self-confidence, and this feeling that yes, I can rise up to this occasion. I can take the right decision for this. So this Shraddha, Vivekananda was adamant upon. And the foundation of this Shraddha is again, you find yourself very reliable in every situation. You show high character. You speak the truth. You are obedient to the rules. You work for others. Simple, simple things which we have learnt in school, if we put it into practice, I think it will build up this enormous Shraddha in us. Vivekananda used to say, it is this Shraddha that makes all the changes in this world. We have given a number of centuries believing in God and not doing anything ourselves. You see, this is what Indian history is about. Constantly having faith in a transcendental power, a faith which never came out into practice, a faith which you didn't do anything about it. Now Vivekananda is telling us, translate that faith into yourself, faith in yourself first. Then only you can believe in the higher power. God will be actually very happy if we take the whole thing in our hands. Isn't it? Tell me, for a growing child, when is the mother really delighted with the child? When he becomes independent, when he starts doing things himself, when he starts walking himself. Only a sick mother will want a sick child who only depends on her. Isn't it? So let us take the whole thing in our own hands. This is Shraddha towards God. This is the new interpretation of what our developmental drive should be through Vivekananda philosophy. Take the whole thing into your hands. As he said, be rational, think out things for yourself, and let us understand things by ourselves, not believing in this and that. This is the second thing, faith in ourselves. The third point which Vivekananda makes for character development, and which is very important, is the service-mindedness. Service as a basic philosophy of life. It doesn't matter what religion you believe in, what God you believe in, whatever you do, whatever you read. Finally, it should come to this: you are able to do good to others unselfishly by yourself without requiring any extra motivation from anyone. That time only, if you can sound the warning, that keep minimal time for this. You have a lot to achieve in life. An 18-year-old, he has his whole life in front of him. Other half the day is spent in talking with friends. And kya hai itna baatein karne ko for an 18-year-old? If he is discussing something at the very intellectual level, academic level, yes, it's justified. But just doing something, so you can sound the warning right when he starts using the application. But it is very difficult to control youngsters. एक बार वो संस्कार हो जाएगा ना, repetition से, then it is very difficult to break the habit. The only way to break the habit is to strongly enforce discipline, which he will go against. See that his interests are drawn to higher things. अगर ये आप कर सके through books, through whatever, आप उसको विवेकानंद ऐप दे दीजिए. It is circulating everywhere. Let him read good stuff. He will get out of his WhatsApp whatever. ये कर सकते हैं. Give him better things to read, more absorbing things, something inspirational, and I think he will change his habits.
उपस्थित सभी अतिथिगणों एवं गुरु जी को सभी को हमारी तरफ से स्वागत। और आज की हमारी जो प्रस्तुति है उसकी शुरुआत ध्रुपद से होगी, जिसके बोल हैं शंकर अति प्रचंड नाचत कर डमरू बाजे। उसके बाद आगे परफॉर्मेंस कंटिन्यूड होगी धमार ताल से 14 मात्रा से टेक्निकल, जिसमें मेरा साथ देंगे नीरज परिहार, चंचल प्रसाद, रवि प्रकाश और करण भास्कर। मैं आज्ञा लेता हूँ आप सभी से, कोई गलती हो तो क्षमा कीजिएगा।
ओम डिमक डिम डमरू बाजे फिर गए आशीष शिखर पर साज भाग कर ध्वनि रंग बाज शीश चंद्र और गंग विराज उमा रमा अति सुर सब साज कर त्रिशूल डमरू लिए नाच फिर कर गिन हाथरी 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 कर गिन शंकर अति प्रचंड नाचत कर डमरू बाज 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 शंकर अति प्रचंड शंकर अति प्रचंड नाचत कर डमरू डमरू बाजे डमरू बाजे डमरू डमरू शंकर अति प्रचंड नाचत कर डमरू बाज शंकर अति प्रचंड नाचत कर डमरू बाज शंकर अति प्रचंड नाचत कर डमरू डमरू बाजे शंकर अति प्रचंड नाचत कर डमरू डमरू बाजे शंकर अति प्रचंड नाचत कर डमरू 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 बाजे डमरू 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 बाजे डमरू 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 बाजे नाचत कर डमरू बाजे शंकर अति प्रचंड नाचत कर डमरू बाजे शंकर अति प्रचंड नाचत कर डमरू बाजे शंकर अति प्रचंड नाचत कर डमरू बाजे व्याघ्र कटी सर्पहार व्याघ्र कटी सर्पहार गले सोय मुंडमाल गले सोय मुंडमाल नंदेश्वर शिव शंभु नंदेश्वर शिव शंभु बाज डमरू डमरू बाज शंकर अति प्रचंड नाचत कर डमरू बाज नाचत कर डमरू बाज नाचत कर डमरू बाज शंकर अति प्रचंड। That's it. Take that.